The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
This is Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. Do you want to live a more fulfilling life? Do you want to live your legacy and achieve your personal, professional, and financial goals? Well, coming up on Divya Parekh's Beyond Confidence, you will hear real stories of leaders, entrepreneurs, and achievers who have stepped into discomfort, shattered their status quo, and are living the life they want. You will learn how relationships are the key to achieving your aspirations and financial goals. Moving your career or business forward does not have to happen at the expense of your personal or family life, or vice versa. Learn more at www.divyaparekh.com, and you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. This is Beyond Confidence, and now here's your host, Divya Parekh.
Good morning, folks. So excited to be here with you. And I want to share with you super exciting news. Just recently, I was checking on my book, Expert to Influencer, and it was in top 15 books after 2.5 years, and it's all because of you. Thank you for getting my books. Because of your help, we have been able to help several different entrepreneurs from the profits of our book. So thank you. And as always, I'm going to call upon you to share an hour of your time and give it without any conditions to someone. 1 hour of support to somebody. Do that and help somebody out every month. And folks, today we are bringing on a very special guest, Joanne Hurley, a lawyer and an author.
Good morning.
Good morning, Joanne. And how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. Really nice weather here and looking forward to talking.
Lovely. So, Joanne, I have shared something with you in the chat, so just kind of check that out. And folks, I was just sharing with Joanne that we will be talking with her about her life today. So, Joanne, can you share with us an incident from your childhood where you remember something fun or somebody left an indelible mark on you or a memory that stands out?
I think there's two people that left an indelible mark. One, my next door neighbor, Aunt Lorna. Not really an aunt, but as some people become really important to a little girl. She was from England. And I think that opened up my world to there was another country out there. At 8 or 9, you don't know that. And she shared with me Winnie the Pooh. She shared with me National Geographics. Really just made an impact, too small of a word. She was a wonderful, warm, loving woman. The other person would be my mom. My mom had 7 kids and just a very warm, wonderful person, came from Spain when she was 5, had to learn English, but her lesson to me has lasted all my life. And that is that you've got to do your best. And how she said it to me was, you've got to do your best. That's what your dad and I expect. And if you don't do well at something, that's okay, because that just means it's not something that's in your talents. So don't worry about that. Just do your best, and most of the time you'll be fine.
Lovely, because it's amazing how people leave those impressions on us that carry with us for the rest of our life.
Yeah.
And I gotta share that I still remember I used to go to a Catholic school, and there was, in those days, they used to take a ruler, believe it or not.
I do
And
believe it. I went to one too.
yeah, I mean, it's a gosh, folks, listeners, you must be thinking, oh, Divya is ancient. I'm not that ancient. So what used to happen is that it was normal at that point in time. Unfortunately, I did not have to extend my hand out quite a bit. And I still remember to this day, in second grade, I had this wonderful nun, Sister Olivia, and just she was an embodiment of kindness. And it's amazing how people can leave a mark on you. So, Joanne, tell us a bit about if you were precocious as a girl, and what was your childhood like?
It was really a sweet childhood. Um, you raked leaves, you burnt leaves by the side of the road. My dad, oh God, this was the best thing. My dad built us a skating rink in our backyard. And all winter we would skate and then come in and have hot chocolate. Hot chocolate is one of my favorite drinks to this day. But it was a really sweet childhood. Um, I had 5 younger brothers and sisters. And so when I got old enough, I started taking them to penny candy stores,
Mm-hmm.
to uh, taking walks, riding bikes, just everything with them. And so being part of a big family really shaped me a lot, I think.
And being the oldest kid,
Mm.
how did you interact? I'm sure you were given a lot of chores, or like, taking care of your brothers and sisters. Did it involve reading books, or how did
Yes, well,
books come into your
mm,
life?
yeah. Actually, I'm the second oldest, but the oldest girl.
Mm.
My older brother's wonderful, but he pretended he was an only child all his life. So, so every night, I would find a book, go up and read to at least 2 or 3 of my younger brothers and sisters.
Mm.
And it was really fun. Also, we now have a certain book history. You can say, "Oh, do you remember that? Do you remember this? Do you remember um, the rabbits who went to grandmother's house on Christmas Day on snowshoes?" Just wonderful stories. And then as I got older, I started buying books each Christmas for every member of the family. If they weren't living near, I would ship them. And then we would all read the book Christmas Eve. So books have played a really important part of my family life. Um, I was the kid who sat around in the summer reading. I wasn't as athletic as lots of kids. And so I did what I liked, which was to read. But reading opened up my world to me, as far as I'm concerned, because you read about giants, you read about people from other countries, you learned about people feeling bad about something. You gained, in my case, you gained empathy. You just, I like people, but I think I like people because of all the explorations of people in their lives that I had through books.
Hmm. Oh, yeah. And I can completely relate to that, Joanne, because books. So, yes, I have an older sibling, but, we were while I was still a pretty young one, my older sibling was in college. So, it was being an only child in terms of playing and all that. I would see
Hmm.
her on holidays and all that. So books became a great companion because we used to live on the outskirts of town, so not many kids to play around with. Yes, you have play
Yeah.
dates and all that, but it's not like having somebody, close by where you just kind of run on the street and you're playing. So books became my companion. I completely agree because I love books. Books have been the bane of my life, writing short stories and poems since I was a child.
Yeah, me too.
So I agree with you. Like, books are so amazing and so precious. So as you grew up, where did your career take you?
Well, initially I wanted to be a spy, but that didn't work because to be a spy, you have to learn 2 or 3 languages and be really fluent. So I'm just not a great linguist. And so I eventually decided that I'd like to help people. And the way I would do that is through being a lawyer. I thought I'd like to be a criminal lawyer initially, but after spending a summer in Chicago at their main courthouse, I just decided it was a very cynical practice, and I didn't want that. I wanted to help people in a different way. So I became a business and also entertainment attorney, and I could help people start their businesses. I could help them go through the hardest part of their businesses because their business was so critical for their families, for their livelihood. Um, and it was really an honor. And I had clients for 15, 20, 25 years. The ones that finally retired, I missed them. I missed hearing about their families, sharing things. I gave a eulogy for one of my clients.
Oh.
Yeah. So being a lawyer was a very big part of me, but it also gave me the ability to see people in different situations, learn more about people, and it really was a great career choice for me.
So powerful. And when did this nugget of an idea that I want to be a children's author float into your mind? And when did you even think about it?
Well, like you, I wrote as a kid. I remember at 14 writing this horrid love story. But actually, it happened because my next door neighbor came over one day and said, "Oh, Catherine's little one, Zoe, is 5 this year, and I want you to write a book so that I can give it to her for her 5th birthday." And I stopped and said, "Maybe you just buy her a present, like everyone else does." And he said, "No, I know you can do this. You like to write. You're good with people. You can do this." So after talking to her mom by email about what was going on with them, I finally started writing a children's book, and that's the one that's just been published and has started the whole process of me deciding to be a children's book author.
Oh, that's fantastic. Because, when you're young, you're so naive. And I still remember, like, when people came to visit us when we had company, I'd just be like out there and saying, "Oh, do you want to hear my story?" And now I go back and think, like, oh my God, was I subjecting them to?
You were, but it was okay.
And, usually adults are pretty nice. It's like they listen to my stories, and
Yeah.
I totally get like how you moved through. So sounds like, Zoe has been in your life for quite some time.
Well, she has. I mean, at 14, when I started babysitting, I was telling stories to the kids. And so my imagination was working. One Christmas, I wrote a play called The Hurley Christmas Tree. And then we acted it out on Christmas Eve with neighbors and all the kids. So yeah, to be honest, I'm Zoe. Zoe is feisty. She's sweet, but she's rambunctious. At home growing up, we used to chase my mom around with the shaving cream can, trying to squirt her and stuff. And that's a Zoe thing. She would do that kind of thing. So yes, Zoe has been around for a long time.
Mm-hmm. So you did share with us about you being a lawyer for quite some time. And of course, as a lawyer, you got to write contracts for businesses. And that is more stoic and boring, more factual, more details. You got to keep everything into account, looking at different parties, how it plays out. So how did that impact your writing?
I think my editors would tell you that I repeat things. In law, you say something and then you say it again a different way just to make sure that everybody understands. And because the most important thing is for people to understand. So that's one thing that's really affected my writing. But you get used to trying to write effectively. And when you're writing effectively, you're thinking about word order. Do you start with a preposition? Do you start with a strong subject? What are you doing? So you're really wordsmithing all the time. So I just had to take my more creative side, play with it, and then I used my lawyer side to edit it. And so it's really a good combination.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. And I know lawyers look for solutions for problems. And how did that play out?
Well, while I first thought about the story and the stories that I would write as being just fun, wacky stories. I mean, the first one I wrote, which it started with The Witch's Spell. I sat across from my office in a little funny Mediterranean restaurant and wrote and laughed, had no idea where I was going, not scripted, not charted, nothing. It was just like, oh, that's fun. And then I'd be typing or I'd be writing. And so it progressed differently than being a lawyer. It progressed as being fun. But then I started thinking about, I wanted kids to think about the kids in the story, because I think that somehow people have gotten away from some of the things our parents have taught us. Be kind to people. Don't say anything nasty to people. Don't say anything you wouldn't want someone to say to you. So empathy seems to have dried up a bit. Maybe as we become a little bit more technical, we forget about the people side. And so I went from a fun, wacky story to showing the things that my mom taught me, frankly. Being kind to neighbors, greeting neighbors when they moved in, all of those kinds of things. So it really progressed there. I wanted kids to think about what the kids in the stories were doing. I set up questions at the end of each chapter to sort of promote that. Then I started realizing that the kids in the story and the other characters, the adult characters, were showing really nice traits in a funny way. They were being responsible, and so I developed that out a little bit. Then I realized, well, parents' most special time with kids often is that reading time at the end of the night. And so why not give parents the ability to see those questions, read those questions, and talk about things like friendship, responsibility, courage. And so it really progressed much differently than I started, which was just the wacky, fun, amusing story, to something to help kids become their best selves, just like my mom told me.
Yeah, definitely. And here's the thing, we are all human beings, so to speak, Homo sapiens. We know that. But being a human can be hard. And especially with pandemic and so many issues going on, it's been really,
Yeah.
really rough on the humanity. And to have this, it's just about common courtesy. Bringing back those human values is such a breath of fresh air. So, folks, I do want to share. Joanne is one of our authors, and she has been a joy to work with as her story developed. So, do you want to share, how do you see yourself? Like, what is your role as a children's author? I know you've shared about sharing the values in your book, developing characters so kids can learn, but you yourself per se. So, here are the books that are going to go and teach. But what do you think of your role as a children's author?
I think that children's authors can either have fun and write great stories, or they can take one more step and be part of helping kids become their best selves, helping parents proactively parent. I talk to a lot of parents about their parenting styles, and a lot of them said, well, we're so busy. We work. The kids do sports. We've got to put dinner on the table when we come home. And so we only deal with issues when something comes up. The school sends home a notice, or the something bad happens. The kids fail. But other parents said, no, no, no. Parenting is every day. And yes, that makes it harder, but you've got to raise topics as they come up. So the way I look at how my writing has transitioned, it's really to have a part of the parenting process where I give issues in the stories for the parents to talk about. At one point, Zoe's bossy. She's a strong character, but she gets bossy with her friends. And one of the questions is, are you bossy with your friends too? Parents have said that has ended up in really great conversations about friendship with their kids. So I've really, maybe it's not surprising that someone who's a lawyer, who's worked with people and seen people grow businesses, but grow their personalities, wants to see the same thing for kids, especially as to values and moral code. I mean, I once raced upstairs, banged on the door of a neighboring apartment in Chicago when smoke was coming out of the door. And other people I was with were all on the ground saying, come down here. My instinct, my moral code, which I never developed, it was just there, said, no, it's my job to help. And so I want to help kids develop how they think, what's important to them.
And that is such a powerful message. So I know your books are for both boys and girls. And you did mention in our conversation today that you are Zoe. So let's kind of bring the conversation to little girls. So in your experience, how do you see these spunky girls? And, usually girls are so chatty and talkative. And then as they kind of go through the tween years, they tend to shy away. And there is that change, and maybe even sometimes a lack of confidence emerging, and them feeling, oh, am I going to fit in? And all these doubts popping in their heads as they grow up, as they're connecting with popular girls and all that. So share, and you have shared with me your ideas about it. So share your ideas about it, and what role do your books play in building confidence?
I think that I'll give you one story of somebody that I met, 15-year-old in France where I was living. Um, Really bright little girl. But when she went to a new school, the other kids were intimidated by her and bullied her. And that was extremely painful for her. She drew back internally, didn't talk a lot, and finally has worked her way through it, because she learned that she didn't do anything wrong and therefore she could only be herself. I questioned that in myself over the years. And so for me, little girls have this problem sometimes of being told who they're supposed to be. There's societal pressures on them to do certain things and not other things. My goal is to have girls see any of the characters in my books and say, oh, well, but if she could do that, I could do that. And my books are sort of divided between fantasy things and real things happening. So in the first book, the little girl moves to a new town, and that's really hard for her. She has no friends. And then a dream she had comes through. She learned that in that experience that dreams are kind of gilded sometimes, and then we have to show a lot of courage once we make those dreams happen. So basically, it's important for little girls to be as strong as they can become. I had a young French law student living with me, really bad family background. And she just was afraid. She just didn't know what she could do in life. And over about a 2-week period, I walked around making notes on my phone. What was confidence? How to get there? And it was a step by step. Believe in yourself. Only listen to yourself. Don't be influenced by other people. Just a step by step. And at the end of living with me, she moved on. She moved up. She's finished school. She's working in a law firm. She's so proud of herself. And I said to her so many times, you just have to believe in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, all my life, if I did my best, even if something didn't work well, I couldn't blame myself. I couldn't lack confidence because I'd done my best. I could forgive myself much more than parents who tell their kids they have to be perfect. So confidence and helping girls get there is a really important thing for me.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, they're both boys and girls who sometimes face this challenge about confidence, and that's where your books can be so effective. And I've heard you reference parents and a bit about parenting in this conversation. So let's say you mentioned earlier that, parents deal with situations only when they arise.
Yeah.
So there may be young parents, and yes, life is so busy, especially, sometimes the school may be closed, the school may be open, and the work has increased tremendously. So as parents are going through this upheaval, what could they introduce in their kids' lives that will help them become strong human beings?
I think that it really goes back to how probably you and I were raised. It's that special one-on-one time with the parent.
Mm-hmm.
I learned how to cook from my mom. I was the baker for the family after about 12. But doing things with parents really makes a difference. And then doing fun things. Um, my character Zoe, when she and her family go on vacation, said, "Oh my God, I didn't know my parents could be so much fun." And so I think that introducing fun things. I know a wonderful family in England, two young kids. I think they're 5 and 7 now, and they took their kids off on nature walks almost every day. He's an artist. He would create castles for them. Um, forts in the living room with blankets going over chairs, having fun with your kids. Now, not everybody is as creative as that family. The nature walks or the walk around the neighborhood should be easy, but reading time should be something that's really easy to accomplish. 15, 20 minutes, it can be an hour. I've heard parents say, I think that's the rarest situation, but think about what's happening. You're spending good time and it's quiet time. It's time without the phone. It's time focused on one child, or if you have two or three, all of the children. It's bonding the siblings. It's just giving special time. Also, I've had parents talk about the fact that the books are more international than a lot of authors' books. I've traveled extensively. I've lived in France for over 6 years. And so I try to introduce a little different things. One parent said, "Oh, we don't usually talk about Africa or get to have a feeling about Africa and the States. I loved you talk about Morocco." Another woman um, said, "I'm Moroccan. I love that you talked about it." And so I opened up a dialogue with my kids about my being born in Morocco, what's Morocco, and set up activities around that. So
Mm.
I think it opens up the door once you see what reading does. It opens up your imagination as a parent to help you parent better.
No, definitely powerful. So, share with us your book that you have recently published and a bit about your journey as an author.
Oh God. I decided in 2017 and 2018, I started writing the second and subsequent two more stories after that in a series called the Zoe and Arthur Adventure series. But I also wrote some stories about grief for kids. I wrote some Christmas stories. I wrote a story about called My Mother's an Immigrant, about my mom coming from Spain and how that impacted her family. So I started writing a lot. Then I decided, well, I'm not just going to do this for fun. I do things. I'm a serious person. I'm going to do a fun person, but a serious person. I'm going to get these published. And so I worked towards that goal. We met, which was a great blessing, and I through lots and lots of hard work, we got there and published the first book in October of last year. It started with The Witch's Spell. I use a phenomenal illustrator from Romania, Anca Celeru, and we're pretty old school in our illustrations. Yes, not all chapter books have illustrations. I understand, but I love children's book illustrations, so I couldn't do a story without illustrations. And the story follows Zoe and her family from living with her her mother's mother and father at a farm. Grandmother's been sick. And then when the grandmother gets better, they move to a new town. Well, she knows no one, and it's the summer. And so finally she starts meeting some friends, some magical things happen, and she ends up in a fairy tale most of us know. And it ends up that there's a princess who thinks a lot about little kids, loves them, but doesn't think they can really help. And so Zoe proves to herself and to the princess that she could solve a problem. And she does it by not having preconceived ideas about people, listening to both sides, and then coming up with solutions. And in the end, the princess is amazed, and the story ends happily, and the friends end up waiting for the next adventure.
So it sounds like a lot of adventure, excitement, and fun.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. And folks, if you are looking to get that book, would you like to show your book to our audience?
Oh.
And where it can be found?
Yes, it's available on Amazon worldwide, and it's available in your local bookstore by just ordering it. In Oklahoma City, there's several bookstores, including Barnes & Noble, that are carrying it. But I didn't think to have a book next to me. So if you give me just a quick second, I'll go grab it.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, folks, I got to share this whole journey was awesome because we worked together and everything went really well. So,
and this is it.
And the title of the book is It Started with the Witch's Spell.
That's right. That's right.
So, Joanna, if you want to share your final words with our listeners, that'll be great.
Yes, I think that what I would say is for the adults listening, if you have a dream, go for it. Don't wish all your life that you'd accomplish something. It's not easy. It's a lot of work. But if it's writing, painting, composing, planting a new garden, whatever it is, do it, because it will fulfill you in ways you never would have imagined. It just helps you grow in the same way that books can help children grow. So, and for the would-be authors, it takes a lot of work, but it is well worth it when you see your book on the shelf of a bookstore. So once again, if you're looking for the book, well, I was born Joanne. I'm using Joanna for the book. And so it started with The Witch's Spell by Joanne Hurley, and easily ordered on Amazon, paperback, hardback, ebook for those of you who like that. So please go explore. I have another book coming out early this year, The Great Bednapping Mystery. So you can take a look at that very, very soon. And kids have said, when's the next story coming? So that's when it is.
Well, thank you, Joanne, for joining us. And thank you, listeners, as always, for being part of our show, because without you, the show would not be possible. And I can tell you it will be fun, especially if you have kids or nephews or niece, to kind of get that story time with some snuggles and use it either as a gift or spending time with your own children. So reach out to us with any requests you may have. So thank you, Joanne, for joining us. Greatly appreciate you.
Thank you, Divya. Yep, it was just a pleasure.
Absolutely. And thank you, listeners. And thank you, Jason, for making this show possible. And we'll see you next time again. Take care. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for being part of Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. We hope you have learned more about how to start living the life you want. Each week on Beyond Confidence, you hear stories of real people who have experienced growth by overcoming their fears and building meaningful relationships. During Beyond Confidence, Divya Parekh shares what happened to her when she stepped out of her comfort zone to work directly with people across the globe. She not only coaches people how to form heart connections, but also transform relationships to mutually beneficial partnerships as they strive to live the life they want. If you are ready to live the life you want and leverage your strengths, learn more at www.divyaparekh.com. And you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. We look forward to you joining us next week.